Dr. Marcus Chen pressed his face against the observation window of Research Station Times Kepler's Dream Asterisk. Outside, the vast emptiness of space stretched in all directions. But today was different. Today, humanity would meet a new alien species for the first time. Marcus had spent 5 years on this frontier station, studying alien life forms and waiting for moments like this. As the station's lead xenobiologist, he would be one of the first humans to interact with the Veil Nari delegation arriving today. "Nervous?" asked Dr. Sarah Kim, his research partner, as she joined him at the window. "Excited," Marcus replied. "We know so little about them. Only that they're highly intelligent and interested in peaceful contact." A shimmer appeared in the darkness. The Veil Nari ship materialized slowly, its hull seeming to bend light around it. The vessel was beautiful, all flowing curves and crystalline panels that pulsed with soft colors. 2 hours later, Marcus stood in the station's main meeting hall. Captain Rodriguez had arranged everything perfectly. Soft lighting, comfortable seating, and translation devices ready. The airlock hissed open, and the first Veil Nari stepped through. Marcus forgot to breathe. She was tall and graceful, with pale blue skin that seemed to glow from within. Crystalline patches covered her arms and face, shifting from deep purple to soft silver as she looked around the room. Her hair was white as starlight, flowing like water down her back. When her large, dark eyes met his, Marcus felt something shift in his chest. "I am Lyrilleth," she said, her voice musical and warm. "I serve as cultural liaison for my people. We are honored to meet humanity." Marcus stepped forward. "Dr. Marcus Chen, xenobiologist. The honor is ours." When she smiled, the crystals on her cheeks sparkled like tiny stars. The formal meetings went well. The Veil Nari were peaceful, curious about human culture and technology. They offered to share knowledge about stellar navigation and energy systems. But Marcus found himself watching Lyrilleth more than listening to the diplomatic talks. After the official ceremonies ended, Lyrilleth approached him. "Dr. Chen, might I see your laboratory? I am fascinated by your biological research methods." Marcus nodded quickly. "Of course. Please, call me Marcus." His lab was his pride. Microscopes that could see individual atoms, computers that could model entire genetic systems, and samples from dozens of alien worlds. Lyrilleth moved through it like a dancer, her crystals brightening as she examined each piece of equipment. "This is remarkable," she said, studying a DNA sequencer. "You can map the complete genetic structure of any organism? Any carbon-based life form, yes. What about your people? How do you study biology?" Lyrilleth's crystals dimmed slightly. "We approach it differently. Tell me, Marcus, how long do humans typically live?" "About 80 to 90 years, sometimes longer with medical treatment." "What about Veil Nari? We can live for thousands of years," she said quietly. "If we choose to." Something in her tone made Marcus look at her more closely. "If you choose to?" Lyrilleth turned away, focusing on another instrument. "Your mating practices fascinate me. Humans can reproduce multiple times, yes? With the same partner?" "Yes, that's common. Many humans mate for life, having several children together over many years." The crystals on her arms pulsed with a color Marcus hadn't seen before, deep red mixed with gold. "How wonderful that must be," she whispered. Over the following days, the formal meetings continued. But Marcus found himself spending more and more time with Lyrilleth in his lab. She was brilliant, asking questions that challenged his thinking and offering insights that made him see familiar problems in new ways. "Your people are remarkable," she said one evening as they worked late together. "You fight against limitations that other species simply accept." "What do you mean?" "Disease, aging, death itself. You study these things not to understand them, but to defeat them." Marcus paused in his work. Isn't that what intelligent beings should do? Fight against suffering? Lireleth's crystals went completely dark for a moment. Some suffering cannot be fought. Some things are simply the way of nature. I don't believe that, Marcus said firmly. Every problem has a solution, if you're smart enough to find it. She looked at him with an expression he couldn't read. Even biological imperatives that have existed for millions of years? Especially those. Biology isn't destiny, Lireleth. It's just another system to understand and improve. That night, Marcus lay awake thinking about their conversation. There was something Lireleth wasn't telling him. Something that made her sad whenever they talked about mating and reproduction. He'd noticed how she always changed the subject when he asked about Veil Nari family structures. The next morning, he found her in the observation deck, staring out at the stars. Her crystalline patches were a soft blue-green that he'd learned meant contentment. "Beautiful morning," he said, joining her. "Every morning is beautiful when you don't know how many you have left," she replied. Marcus frowned. "Are you ill? Our medical bay has advanced healing technology. No, Marcus. I'm not ill." She turned to face him, and he saw something in her eyes that made his heart race. "But there are things about my people that yours don't yet understand." "Then tell me." Lireleth was quiet for a long moment. When she spoke, her voice was barely audible. "Some knowledge brings only pain." Before Marcus could respond, Captain Rodriguez's voice echoed through the station's communication system. "All senior staff to Conference Room Alpha. The Veil Nari delegation has requested an emergency meeting." As they walked to the meeting, Marcus noticed that all the Veil Nari looked different today. Their crystals were darker, and they moved with a heavy sadness that hadn't been there before. In the conference room, the eldest Veil Nari, called Matron Gel, stood to address the humans. Her ancient face was grave as she spoke. "Honored friends, we must share with you a truth about our people. It is time you understood why some knowledge brings sorrow, and why not all biological imperatives can be fought." Marcus felt a chill run down his spine as he looked at Lireleth. Her crystals had gone completely black, and she wouldn't meet his eyes. Matron Gel's voice filled the conference room with an ancient sadness. "Our species carries a burden that we have hidden from you. It is time you understood why Lireleth has been asking so many questions about human reproduction and longevity." Marcus felt his stomach twist. Whatever was coming, he knew it would change everything. "When a Veil Nari female mates for the first time," the matron continued, "her body begins a process that cannot be stopped. Within 72 standard hours, she dies." The words hit Marcus like a physical blow. "It is our biological nature," Gel explained. "After mating, complex chemical reactions begin in the female's body. Her cellular structure breaks down at the molecular level. She literally dissolves, giving her genetic essence to create new life." Captain Rodriguez leaned forward. That's horrible. Surely your medical technology can prevent this?" "We have tried for thousands of years. It is not a disease or malfunction. It is how we evolved. The female's death ensures that only the strongest genetic material passes to the next generation." Dr. Kim spoke up, her voice shaking. "So Veil Nari women can only mate once? And then they die?" "Yes, it is considered sacred among our people, the final gift that creates the future." Marcus looked at Lireleth, who sat with her head down, crystals completely dark. "How old are you?" he asked quietly. 847 years, she whispered. "Still young by our standards. And you've never?" "No. Many of us choose not to mate at all. We live our long lives alone, rather than face the final gift." The room fell silent. Marcus tried to process what he was hearing. In a corner of his mind, scientific curiosity began working through the biological implications. But mostly, he felt a crushing weight in his chest. "Why are you telling us this now, Captain Rodriguez asked. Matron Gel looked directly at Marcus. Because Lyrilleth has entered the pre-mating cycle. What does that mean? When one of our people finds their resonance partner, their perfect genetic match, their body begins preparing for mating, whether they want it to or not. Hormones change. Cellular structure shifts. It cannot be reversed. Marcus felt the blood drain from his face. You're saying that Lyrilleth? Dr. Chen, you are her resonance partner. Her body has already begun the changes that prepare her for the final gift. Lyrilleth finally looked up, tears streaming down her face. I'm sorry, Marcus. I tried to stay away from you. I tried to fight it. But my biology doesn't care what I want. How long? Marcus asked, his voice rough. The pre-cycle lasts 7 to 10 days. Once it begins mating, she will have 72 hours. And she's been in this pre-cycle for how long? 6 days, Lyrilleth said softly. Marcus stood up so fast his chair fell over. Matron Gel shook her head sadly. Dr. Chen, I understand your distress. But this is simply how our species functions. Lyrilleth knew the risks when she chose to serve as liaison. She accepted them. Well, I don't accept them. Marcus began pacing. Nothing in biology is absolute. Every system has variables, exceptions, workarounds. Marcus, Lyrilleth said gently, some things cannot be changed. You don't know that. You said yourself that your people approach biology differently than we do. Maybe that's the problem. Maybe that's the problem. Dr. Kim touched his arm. Marcus, maybe we should listen to what they're telling us. This isn't a human problem to solve. Marcus spun around to face her. The hell it isn't. If Lyrilleth dies, it becomes my problem. Our problem. But their entire culture is built around accepting this, Captain Rodriguez said. Watch me. Marcus headed for the door. Where are you going? Lyrilleth called after him. To the lab. I'm going to learn everything there is to know about Veil Nari biology. Matron Gel stood. Dr. Chen, please understand. We have had our greatest minds working on this problem for millennia. If there was a solution, we would have found it. Marcus paused at the door. Maybe. Or maybe you were looking for the wrong kind of solution. Over the next 3 days, Marcus barely left his laboratory. He studied every piece of data the Veil Nari had shared about their biology. He ran computer models, genetic analyses, and cellular structure comparisons. He didn't eat regularly and slept only when exhaustion forced him to. Lyrilleth visited him several times, begging him to stop. Her condition was getting worse. The crystals on her skin had changed color permanently, now glowing with a soft white light that meant her body was preparing for its final purpose. She was growing weaker as her energy redirected to optimizing her genetic material. Please, Marcus. Spend these last days with me. Not buried in data that won't change anything. I can't give up, he said, not looking away from his screens. There's something here. Some pattern I'm missing. Even if you found something, would it matter? My people would never accept it. They would see it as an abomination against nature. Marcus finally turned to face her. She looked fragile, almost translucent. Would you accept it? If I found a way to save you, would you take the risk? Lyrilleth's crystals flickered between white and the deep red gold he'd seen that first day. I don't know if I have the right to choose survival over tradition. You have every right. It's your life. But it's also my people's way. Our culture. Our sacred beliefs. Our sacred beliefs. Our culture. Our sacred beliefs. Marcus took her hands. They felt cold and strange, as if she was already slipping away. Lyrilleth, I need you to know something. In the short time I've known you, you've become the most important person in my life. Perhaps that's exactly what the universe intended. Perhaps some connections are meant to be brief, but perfect. No. Marcus's voice was firm. I don't believe in cosmic cruelty. I believe in science, in solutions, in refusing to accept the unacceptable. That night, alone in his lab, Marcus made a discovery that changed everything. Deep in the historical data the Veil Nari had provided, he found references to something they had never mentioned in their explanations. The walked-away ones. Ancient texts spoke of Veil Nari, who had somehow survived the mating process, though they were considered cursed and exiled from society. The records were fragmentary, but they suggested that survival was possible under certain conditions. Marcus's hands shook as he accessed more files. Whatever had happened to these historical survivors might hold the key to saving Lireleth. But time was running out. According to his calculations, she had less than 24 hours before the final stage would begin. And once it started, even he might not be able to stop it. Marcus had 18 hours left. The station's AI, Arya, spoke to him through the laboratory speakers as he worked frantically through his fourth straight night without sleep. Dr. Chen, your vital signs indicate dangerous levels of exhaustion. I recommend immediate rest. Not now, Arya. Marcus didn't look up from the ancient Veil Nari texts scrolling across his screens. Show me everything about the walked-away ones. Every reference, every mention, every fragment. Accessing historical databases. Dr. Chen, I must point out that these texts are largely considered mythology by modern Veil Nari scholars. Mythology often contains truth that science hasn't figured out yet. On the screens, dozens of references appeared. Most were just single sentences or brief mentions. But slowly, a pattern began to emerge. The walked-away ones weren't random survivors. They all shared certain characteristics. Marcus rubbed his burning eyes and tried to focus. What made these individuals different? The lab door slid open, and Dr. Kim entered with a cup of coffee and a meal tray. You need to eat something. Sarah, look at this. Marcus gestured at the screens. The survivors all came from the northern provinces of their homeworld. The texts mentioned different blood and strange chemistry. Marcus, even if some Veil Nari survived in the past, that doesn't mean you can save Lireleth. These could be genetic mutations, environmental factors that don't exist anymore, or just stories that grew in the telling. Or they could be clues to a biological mechanism that the modern Veil Nari have forgotten about. Marcus pulled up a cellular analysis chart. Look at Lireleth's genetic structure. There are markers here that don't match the standard Veil Nari template they gave us. Dr. Kim leaned closer. What kind of markers? Dormant genes. Evolutionary throwbacks. It's like she has ancient DNA sequences that her people have mostly bred out of their population. That could mean anything, Marcus. Don't let hope make you see patterns that aren't there. Before Marcus could respond, the laboratory door opened again. Lireleth walked in, supported by another Veil Nari female. The change in her appearance shocked Marcus. Her skin was now almost transparent, and the white light from her crystals was so bright it cast shadows around the room. I came to say goodbye, she said, her voice weak but steady. Marcus stood and went to her. It's not time for goodbyes yet. It will be soon. The final stage begins in a few hours. Lireleth, I need to ask you something. What province were your ancestors from on your homeworld? She looked confused. The northern mountains. Why? Marcus felt his heart jump. The HFY region? Yes, but how could you know that? It's a small, isolated area. Because that's where all the historical survivors came from. Marcus turned to his screens. Arya. Cross-reference Lireleth's genetic markers with the geographical data from the walked-away ones. The AI worked quickly. Correlation confirmed. Lireleth's genetic profile contains 73% of the markers associated with individuals from the HFY region. The other Veil Nari, Lireleth had called her Senna, stepped forward. What are you suggesting? Human? I'm suggesting that survival might be possible for individuals with certain genetic traits. Traits that Lireleth has. Lireleth shook her head weakly. Even if that were true, the process has already begun. My cellular structure is breaking down, but it hasn't completed yet. If I can interrupt the cascade at the right moment. You're talking about experimental procedures on a dying person, Doctor, Kim said. Marcus, even if your theory is correct, you don't have equipment here that could handle this kind of intervention. Yes, I do. Marcus gestured toward the back of the lab. The regeneration chamber. It's designed to rebuild cellular structure at the molecular level. That's for treating radiation exposure and genetic disorders. You're talking about interrupting an entire species' reproductive biology. It's worth trying. Senna spoke up, her crystals flashing angry red. This is madness. You would interfere with the sacred process? Turn our Lireleth into an abomination? I would save her life. Some things are more important than life, Senna said coldly. Not to me. Marcus looked directly at Lireleth. But it has to be your choice. Lireleth was quiet for a long time. The white light from her crystals pulsed in rhythm with her heartbeat, getting faster as her condition worsened. What would happen to me? If your procedure worked? Marcus hesitated. I don't know. The genetic changes might be permanent. You might not be fully Veil Nari anymore. Meaning? You might lose some of your natural abilities. The crystal communication. The long lifespan. Other traits I don't fully understand yet. But I would live? If it works, yes, you would live. Lireleth closed her eyes. And, if it doesn't work? You die faster, Dr. Kim said bluntly. Possibly in great pain. Sarah. Marcus shot her a warning look. She deserves to know the risks, Marcus. Lireleth opened her eyes and looked at both humans. You would do this for me? Risk your careers, your relationships with my people, even my life itself? For a chance that might not work? Yes, Marcus said without hesitation. Why? Marcus struggled for words. Because I love you. I know that might sound impossible, after such a short time, but it's true. And more than that, I believe every intelligent being deserves the right to choose their own fate. Senna made a disgusted sound. Love? You barely know her. I know enough. I know she's brilliant and kind and curious about everything. I know she makes me want to be better than I am. I know that the universe is a darker place if she's not in it. Lireleth's crystals shifted to the deep red-gold color that Marcus had learned meant complex emotions. And if I become something that is neither human nor Veil Nari, if your people reject me, too, then we'll figure it out together. The room fell silent except for the hum of laboratory equipment. Finally, Lireleth spoke. How long do I have to decide? Marcus checked his readings. The final cascade begins in 6 hours. Once it starts, the cellular breakdown happens too fast to interrupt. And your procedure? Would need to begin during the cascade. There's only about a 4-hour window where I might be able to reset your cellular structure. Lireleth nodded slowly. Then I need to think. And pray to whatever powers might listen to someone about to commit what my people would consider the ultimate sacrilege. As she left the lab, supported by Senna who glared at Marcus with undisguised hatred, Dr. Kim put her hand on his shoulder. Marcus, are you sure you know what you're doing? No, he admitted. But I'm sure about what I'm not doing. I'm not giving up on her. Outside the lab windows, the stars continued their eternal dance, indifferent to the desperate human scientist racing against time to save the woman who had become his entire world. Marcus stood in the station's medical bay, making final preparations to the regeneration chamber. His hands shook slightly as he calibrated the molecular reconstruction protocols. 4 hours remained. Dr. Kim worked beside him, her disapproval clear, but her professionalism intact. The cellular repair matrix is online. But Marcus, I have to say this one more time. We're about to attempt something that has never been tried on any species, let alone the Veil Nari. I know the risks. Do you? Because I've run the calculations. There's a 60% chance this kills her immediately. Another 20% chance it leaves her in worse condition than before. And well, Marcus paused in his work. And the other 20%? Unknown. Could be anything from partial success to complete cellular reconstruction. We're in uncharted territory. Number 10. The medical bay doors opened. Lyrillith entered alone, walking slowly but under her own power. The white light from her crystals had intensified further, and Marcus could see the first signs of cellular breakdown beginning at her fingertips. "I've made my decision," she said quietly. Marcus felt his heart stop. "I choose to try. Not because I'm afraid to die, but because I'm finally brave enough to live." Relief flooded through Marcus, followed immediately by terror. Now he actually had to make this work. "My people are not pleased," Lyrillith continued. "Matron Gel has formally forbidden any Veil Nari from participating in what she calls this abomination against nature. Senna won't even speak to me. I'm sorry. I know how much your culture means to you." Lyrillith managed a weak smile. "Perhaps it's time for my culture to evolve too." Dr. Kim checked her instruments. "Lyrillith, you need to understand exactly what we're going to do. When the final cascade begins, Marcus will use a combination of human stem cell technology and synthetic compounds to essentially reset your cellular structure. The process will be extremely painful. More painful than dissolving alive? Different painful. We'll have to keep you conscious throughout the procedure. If you fall unconscious, we lose the ability to monitor your neural feedback, and the process becomes much more dangerous." Lyrillith nodded. Marcus took her hand. Her skin felt strange, already beginning the molecular changes that would normally lead to death. "Are you sure about this?" No. But I'm sure about you." 2 hours later, the final cascade began. Lyrillith screamed as the ancient biological process activated in her cells. The white light from her crystals exploded into brilliant, painful radiance. Marcus could barely look at her as he initiated the emergency medical protocols. "Beginning cellular intervention," he announced, his voice steady despite his terror. "Arya, monitor all biological systems. Monitoring activated. Warning. Subject's cellular structure is degrading at an accelerated rate." Marcus activated the regeneration chamber. Streams of reconstructed genetic material began flowing into Lyrillith's bloodstream through dozens of micro-injectors. The chamber filled with a blue mist of synthetic healing compounds. "How are you feeling?" Dr. Kim asked Lyrillith. "Like I'm being torn apart and rebuilt at the same time," Lyrillith gasped. "Is that normal? For this procedure?" "We have no idea what normal is," Kim admitted. Marcus watched the readings frantically. Lyrillith's cellular breakdown was fighting against the reconstruction process. For every cell they repaired, 2 more began dissolving. They were losing. "Increase the stem cell concentration," he ordered. "Marcus, that's approaching toxic levels. She's dying anyway. Do it." The chamber's blue mist grew thicker. Lyrillith's screaming stopped, but not because the pain had ended. She had no breath left to scream with. Her entire body was now glowing like a star, the crystals on her skin burning so brightly that Marcus had to wear protective eyewear. "Neural activity is spiking," Dr. Kim warned. "She's going into shock. Can you stabilize her?" "Trying." "Lyrillith, can you hear me? You need to stay with us." Lyrillith's voice was barely a whisper. "Still. Here. 4. 4. 4. 4. Marcus made a desperate decision. "Arya, integrate my DNA template with the reconstruction matrix." "Marcus, no." Dr. Kim spun around. "You don't know what that will do to her. If it will give her human cellular repair mechanisms, the ability to heal from damage instead of dissolving from it. It could also kill her instantly. She's dying anyway. Marcus input his genetic code into the system. Immediately, the regeneration chamber's processes changed. The blue mist turned purple, then silver. Lyrilleth's body convulsed as human, and Veil Nari biology began merging at the molecular level. For 10 minutes that felt like hours, everyone in the medical bay held their breath. The readings on the monitors swung wildly between life and death. Lyrilleth's crystals flickered on and off like dying stars. Then, gradually, the cellular breakdown slowed. "I'm reading stable neural activity," Dr. Kim said. Her voice filled with amazement. "Cellular integrity it's holding." Marcus didn't dare hope yet. "What about the cascade process?" "It's stopped. The death sequence has been interrupted." "And her vital signs?" "Stable. Weak, but stable." The chamber's mist began to clear. Lyrilleth lay motionless, her skin now a pale gold color instead of blue. The crystals on her arms and face had changed too. Instead of the normal Veil Nari purple and silver, they showed swirls of blue and green, colors no member of her species had ever displayed. Marcus leaned over her. "Lyrilleth, can you hear me?" Her eyes opened slowly. They were different now, still large and dark, but with flecks of brown that definitely hadn't been there before. "Did it work?" she whispered. Marcus checked the medical readings one more time. "It worked. You're alive." Lyrilleth tried to sit up, then gasped as she saw her reflection in the chamber's polished surface. "I look different. The human genetic integration changed your appearance." She held up her hands, staring at the new colors in her crystals. "I can't feel the song anymore." "What song?" "The one my people share through our crystals. The connection that lets us communicate without words. It's gone." Dr. Kim checked her readings again. "That makes sense. The human DNA integration probably disrupted your bioluminescent communication systems. So, I'm no longer truly Veil Nari." Marcus felt a stab of guilt. "Lyrilleth, I'm sorry. I didn't know that would happen." She was quiet for a long moment, still staring at her changed hands. Then, she looked at him with eyes that now held depths of brown and gold. "Don't be sorry. I chose this. I chose life, even if it means becoming something new." "What are you now, then?" Lyrilleth smiled, and Marcus realized that her smile was different too. Warmer. More human somehow. "I don't know, but I'm alive to find out, and I'm not alone." Outside the medical bay, Marcus could hear angry voices as the Veil Nari delegation demanded answers. Soon, they would have to face the consequences of what they had done. But for now, it was enough that Lyrilleth was breathing, her heart was beating, and her changed but still beautiful eyes were looking at him with gratitude and something that might grow into love. They had broken the chains of biology itself. Whatever came next, they would face it together. 5 years later, Marcus stood on the observation deck of Research Colony Harmony, watching 3 ships approach through the void of space. The colony floated at the edge of known space, a joint human Veil Nari facility that had become a beacon of hope for the impossible. "They're beautiful ships," Lyrilleth said, joining him at the window. Her voice still carried the musical quality of her species, but there was something warmer in it now. Something distinctly her own. Marcus looked at her and smiled. She had continued changing over the years. Her skin remained the pale gold color she had gained during the procedure, and her crystals now showed colors that shifted between Veil Nari purple and human-influenced blues and greens. But the most striking change was in her eyes. They were fully brown now, warm and deep, and when she laughed, they crinkled at the corners, like a human's. "Nervous about meeting them?" Marcus asked. "A little. It's been 5 years since any of my people have spoken to me willingly." The approaching ships carried 12 Veil Nari females, all of whom had requested asylum from their homeworld. All of whom had entered the pre-mating cycle and chosen to risk the procedure rather than accept the final gift. Dr. Chen, came Captain Martinez's voice over the communication system. The delegation has arrived. They're requesting to speak with both you and Liraleth before the others disembark. On our way, Marcus replied. As they walked through the colony's corridors, Marcus reflected on how much had changed. The first 2 years after Liraleth's transformation had been difficult. The Veil Nari government had severed diplomatic relations with humanity, calling the procedure an act of biological terrorism. Liraleth had been declared dead by her people, her name erased from all records. But word had spread quietly through Veil Nari society. Whispers of the female who had survived, who lived beyond the final gift. Some called her cursed. Others began to wonder if she had found a new kind of freedom. The first to come seeking the procedure was Senna, Liraleth's former friend who had watched her transformation with horror. She arrived alone in a stolen ship, her pre-mating cycle already advanced, begging forgiveness and asking for the chance to live. The procedure had worked again, though each individual required slight modifications based on their specific genetic markers. Senna survived, transformed into something between human and Veil Nari, her crystals now showing flashes of gold that no pure Veil Nari had ever displayed. Now 12 more had come. In the docking bay, Marcus and Liraleth waited as the airlock cycled. The first through was a young Veil Nari female, her crystals dim with fear and hope. I am Nira, she said formally. I seek audience with the Changed One. Liraleth stepped forward. I am Liraleth, and you don't need to use formal address. We're all just people here, trying to live the lives we choose. Another female emerged, older, her bearing proud despite her circumstances. I am Matron Vess. I speak for the others. You're a matron? Marcus was surprised. The matron class were the ruling elite among the Veil Nari. Why would you risk coming here? Because I have watched 12 of my daughters choose death over love in the past decade. I will not watch a 13th. She gestured, and another figure emerged from the ship. A younger female whose crystals burned with the white light of advanced pre-mating cycle. This is Kira, my youngest daughter. She has been in cycle for 8 days. Marcus felt the familiar weight of responsibility. That doesn't leave us much time. The procedure works best if we begin it during the early stages of the cascade. We understand the risks, Matron Vess said. We have studied your research, learned about the others who have made this choice. We accept that we may die in the attempt. And if you live? Liraleth asked gently. You understand that you will no longer be fully Veil Nari? That your people may reject you? Our people are already rejecting us, said another of the females. They reject us the moment we choose love over death. At least this way, we have a chance to live with our choice. Over the following weeks, Marcus and his team performed the procedure on all 12 volunteers. 9 survived the transformation. 3 died during the process, their cellular structure unable to handle the reconstruction matrix. Each success was a victory. Each death was a knife in Marcus's heart. But the survivors joined the growing community on Harmony Colony. They worked alongside humans and other transformed Veil Nari, studying the biological implications of their changes and reaching out to others who might wish to make the same choice. The most surprising discovery came 6 months later, when Liraleth made an announcement that shocked everyone. I'm pregnant, she told Marcus over dinner in their shared quarters. Marcus nearly choked on his food. How is that possible? The procedure should have made you sterile. Apparently not. Dr. Kim thinks the human genetic integration gave me the ability to reproduce multiple times without dying. The first, in our species, recorded history. Marcus stared at her, overwhelmed. How do you feel about it? Terrified, excited, grateful. Most of all, grateful that our child will grow up in a universe where biology doesn't determine destiny. 9 months later, their daughter was born. Zara had her mother's graceful build and her father's brown eyes, but her skin showed a subtle pattern of crystalline patches that glowed with soft, ever-changing colors. She was healthy, intelligent, and completely unique. The first human Veil-Nari hybrid in existence. The Veil-Nari government's response was swift and harsh. They declared Zara an abomination, Liraleth a traitor to her species, and Marcus a criminal against nature. Trade relations with humanity were suspended indefinitely, but on the colony, life continued. The transformed Veil-Nari formed families, pursued careers, and lived the long lives they had chosen, instead of the brief, tragic ones their biology had demanded. "Sometimes I wonder what would have happened if you had accepted the inevitable," Liraleth said one evening as they watched 2-year-old Zara play with blocks that responded to her unique bioluminescence. "We never would have met her," Marcus replied, gesturing at their daughter. "We never would have built this." He waved at the colony around them, where dozens of beings lived lives that their species had never intended them to have. "Do you ever regret it? The diplomatic consequences? The hatred from your people?" Liraleth considered the question. "I regret the pain it caused others. I regret that my people see our choice as a betrayal rather than an evolution. But regret choosing life? Choosing love? Choosing the right to determine my own fate?" She shook her head. "Never." That night, Marcus stood again at the observation window, holding his sleeping daughter while Liraleth worked on her latest research project, developing the transformation procedure for other species who faced similar biological limitations. In the distance, he could see the lights of approaching ships. More beings seeking freedom from the tyranny of their own evolution. More people choosing hope over acceptance. "Arya," he said quietly, "how many requests for transformation have we received this month?" 47 from Veil-Nari individuals, 12 from the Sorth Key Beetle people who face similar post-reproduction mortality, and 3 from other species with various biological limitations. The AI replied. "The word is spreading, Dr. Chen." Marcus smiled and adjusted his daughter in his arms. Zara stirred in her sleep, and her crystalline patches glowed briefly with dreamy colors no pure human or Veil-Nari had ever shown. "Good," he said. "Let it spread. Let everyone know that biology isn't destiny, that love is stronger than evolution, that every intelligent being deserves the right to choose their own story." Outside the window, the stars continued their eternal dance. But now, among them, flew ships carrying beings who had refused to accept the limitations of their birth. People who had chosen to become something new, something better, something free. And at the center of it all was a human scientist who had once been told that some things simply couldn't be changed. And the woman he had loved enough to prove that impossible just meant no one had tried hard enough yet.